Hey everybody, it's a very warm winter February day and I don't know, I just got it in my head that I should be making fresh pasta tonight. So we're gonna do it, but first we need to get some eggs for the egg noodles. So let's go see if the ladies have produced. Okay, hello ladies. Hi, how is everybody? Oh, thank you. Did you have a nice day out here today? Hi. What do you think? All right, have a good night. Okay, now that we've collected our eggs from the coop, we're gonna get making our pasta. And I have to admit, this process does take a long time. It is a little bit time consuming, but it is worth every minute of preparation because the pasta is so good. I had never had fresh pasta until this year, I think. And the difference is incredible. So all you need to make pasta is flour. Well, to make egg noodle pasta is flour, salt, water, and eggs. So it's pretty simple. The work is in the making of the noodles, but I do use cheaters. So I do use a food processor to mix the dough. And then I purchased a stand-up mixer last year with the pasta rolling attachments. So that definitely helps. But if you are wanting to make pasta, you can do it all by hand. So there are options out there if you don't have these tools. So we're just gonna get going. And I will post in the description below the link, the YouTube link that I used to get this recipe from. One of the things that is required to make a really delicious pasta is to make sure that you measure all of your ingredients. So the first thing we're going to do is to measure 300 grams of flour. I'm gonna be making a bunch of batches tonight, enough to dry, to preserve. So you can make this pasta if you make enough of it and you can just lay it out to dry. I'm actually gonna try hanging it on our clothes rack by the fireplace. And then you just package it up in a Ziploc bag and it stays good on the shelf just like your boxed pasta would. So we've got 300 grams of flour, put that in the food processor without spilling. 2 teaspoons of salt. And then you're just gonna give that a quick buzz. We are going to add 2 large eggs. Wouldn't be a day in the kitchen if I didn't make a mess. Good night. Is anyone else as kitchen challenged as me? Whee, tell ya. So we're gonna add our 2 large eggs. Oh gosh. Not knock over the egg bin. And then we are going to add 3 large egg yolks. I don't know if everybody else does their egg yolks like this, but I just rock it back and forth. That's how my mom used to do it. So there's 1, 2. And what we're going for here is 185 grams of liquid. Three. So 3 egg yolks. And then we're going to, so right now we're at 182 grams of liquid. So now we just need to add a little bit of water to equal 185 grams. That's 186, but we're gonna call that good. We're gonna add that liquid to our mixture, and then we're gonna blend that till it forms a dough. I'm just gonna try and work this into a ball. Turn it out on our table here. And you wanna get everything out of the food processor, that's important. Then we're just going to knead it for a minute. So just kind of work it in So I've kneaded it for about a minute, and now we have to knead it for 8 to 10 minutes. And not kneading it like bread, it's a different kind of knead. I'll bring you in a little bit closer here to show you. All right, I've set my timer for 8 minutes, and now we're just going to knead the dough. So all I do is take a little bit of the edge and I just kind of fold it up and then push it down with the heel of my hand. So you're not looking for, you know, a huge knead, but just enough to form that elasticity, really. And what you don't want to do is tear the dough on the underside. So you want to develop a smooth kind of surface on the other side. Okay, I'm done kneading the dough for, I was more like 10 minutes. And now we are just going to wrap this in plastic wrap and let it sit for 30 minutes at room temperature. I'm just gonna sprinkle it with a little flour. Not too much. And while we're letting this sit, we're going to make another batch. Okay, we're just gonna put on our pasta roller attachment. So there's 2 steps to this process. The first one is just rolling the pasta out. And so if you undo the screw at the end of your KitchenAid, it accepts the implement or the tool that you need to use. We're gonna get rolling here. So the first thing that we want to do is divide our dough. So we're gonna cut it into roughly 4 equal pieces. And then we're gonna rewrap the pieces that we aren't using so they don't dry out. And then what we're gonna do is take this piece and do our best to form it into flat kind of pancake. We've got our mixer set to setting number 1. We're going to turn the food processor on low and we're going to start running our dough through. We want to have some regular flour out on our surface. We're going to fold that in half. Fold it just like a letter. One more time. And then we are going to go to the setting number 2 and go through twice. Sure that's nice and floured. Setting number 3. Twice. Number 4. And go through twice. I'm gonna go to 6, but at this point I usually cut it because they get a little bit long. So I just go to setting number 6. So this is the last setting we're going to do. And then we are going to set them aside to dry for about 15 minutes per side. Till it's about the texture of leather. And then we're just gonna continue to do that for all of the pieces. Okay, now we have to let the sheets dry for about a half an hour, 15 minutes each side till they're the consistency of leather, and then they're ready to cut. Our pasta noodle is dry enough now that we are ready to cut. I am using the fettuccine attachment, the thicker noodle attachment. We tried the thinner noodles and we didn't really like it, so we're using this one. And this batch, I'm going to hang on our clothes rack. This is where I'm going to hang the pasta to dry. So I'm just gonna spread it out so that there's spaces in between each noodle. And it just has to dry here for a couple of days. I just hope the dogs can't get it. So yeah, we'll just keep cutting and hanging. This is the first time I've dried the pasta on a rack. The other way to do it is just to create small little bird's nests on the counter and let them dry there for a couple of days, kind of shifting the pasta as it dries. And that works really well also if you don't have a rack like this, but I thought I would try it. You can't make fresh pasta and not have fresh pasta for dinner. So to cook the pasta, it's different than you would if you had store-bought from a box. So to your water, I add about a tablespoon of salt. And I know that sounds like a lot, but it's important to make sure that you salt your water. So I'm gonna add a tablespoon of salt and then I'm gonna bring that to a boil. And this pasta only needs to be cooked for a minute or two, that's it. So I'm gonna finish cutting the pasta and wait for my water to boil. All right, I got my salted water up to a rolling boil, and now I'm just going to add the pasta. And like I said, this only cooks for a minute, so it's a pretty quick process. Dump that in, give it a stir. While I'm waiting for the pasta to cook, I'm gonna open a can of my homemade pasta sauce. I'm just gonna test it to make sure it's cooked. Oh my gosh. You must make homemade pasta, at least just once, to taste that. Oh my gosh, that's so good. Okay, it's cooked. Now I'm just going to use my tongs to remove it from the water, put it in a colander to kind of drip dry. You don't want to dump the pasta out into the colander because any of the flour that you used that was still on the pasta would be then dumped on top of the pasta. So to avoid that, we do this. Let's pop back on the stove, add a little bit of this sauce. Just, whoops. Add a lot of bit of that sauce, obviously. I'm gonna stir that around so it starts to get warm on the bottom. Add my pasta.
You.
Hi.
You.
Stir that around. Then I'm just gonna turn the heat on a little bit, but the heat from the pasta will warm up the sauce. So I'll just let that warm up for a minute. Homemade pasta sauce, homemade sauerkraut, and store-bought Parmesan cheese. Just haven't learned how to make it yet. That's coming. So that's about as homemade as it gets here. We'll bring you along for the taste test. Okay, taste test. Homemade pasta.
Kan nog utensil.
You have to try that. It is really so different. I think that's the biggest thing for me is that it's so different than like boxed pasta. Yeah. It's 2 days later and the pasta is nice and dry. It's all nice and firm. So I'm going to take it over to the counter and package it up. Okay, so here is all the pasta. I have a Ziploc and a jar. I was gonna try keeping it in a jar this time, and it doesn't matter if it breaks, so I'm just gonna see how this goes. So there it is, a jar of homemade pasta and 1 gallon Ziploc bag. We also had a meal, so that's pretty good. These two are both going to make 2 nights, so 1 meal and then 1 night of leftovers. And whenever I cook, that's what I try to do, cook in volume so I don't have to cook every night. So I hope you consider making some homemade pasta. It's super easy, so tasty, so different from boxed pasta. You know where the ingredients came from, and it's just fun to do on a cold winter's night. Have a good one, everybody. See you next time.